Yeah, so family dynamic for me. That part was very misconstrued, um, honestly, my whole life. And it really wasn't till I met now my sisters in Christ, my chosen family, like Nika and Shai, who've seen me grow from early 20s now to my mid 30s, and we've been in each other's lives throughout all these years, to understand what chasing after a relationship looks like. And not necessarily, I think chasing is a bad word, but I mean, learning how to establish a relationship and maintain a relationship for it to continue to grow, to be healthier, to mature, to challenge one another, to be honest in your most vulnerable state, to also have fights, because I think we don't really talk about it. And it's like, oh, well, we talk about once you get married and once you get into an actual relationship with your spouse. But it's like, yeah, like obviously these are inevitable things, but it's like if you don't know how to work in them in the now with the people that you love, with the people that you do life with, that's hard. Like that shows that you're not in a space of like maturity to really step out into what God called you to do or to be in, if you're not in that mental space of like, am I truly ready for this next phase of my life? Because if you say that you are, but you haven't learned to deal with the current relationships in your life, which is your family, which is your chosen family, whether it's your best friend, whether it's your sister, whether it's your brother, whoever it is, I think you're gonna have a really rough time confronting some of the deeper issues once you're in that relationship. And it's not to say that I'm perfect, because I feel like none of us are. Like, I still make mistakes to this very day. I know I'm like constantly feeling guilty about things that I know I shouldn't, because it's like God sustains all those things. But sometimes you do, because you feel like sometimes, man, like I wish I would have handled that differently. Or it's like, but that's why you go back and you can be honest with the people that you love. It's like you can go back and apologize. And then you can have people that are going to receive that. It's also like, I think sometimes our minds are so conformed to our trauma and to our hurt and to our pain from our past that sometimes we forget that we have people in our lives that are willing to receive us with open arms and to forgive us at like any moment's end, right? Where it's like they are willing to say, I love you, and I still value you, and I still see good in you, and I still think that you're important to my life, and we all make mistakes, and I accept your apology, and we're going to keep moving forward. But if you don't have that confirmation from people in your life that show you that you are safe around them, that show you that, things aren't always perfect, and they have a right attitude of like approaching you with certain difficult conversations, then maybe those are the people that are not meant to be in your life, right? And I know, like, we've talked about it so many times in our context of our church and our current community, where, Jesus was part of this bigger family, right? Did he get to choose every single person? No, it was chosen for him, right? And so it's the same thing for us. We don't get to choose the family we're born into, but we can change the trajectory of like how our future family looks like. And I know that's been something constant in the back of my mind. And so when it comes to like stable relationships, it has really been my friendships. It's really been my friends who see me at my worst, who've seen me at my best, who've seen me at my like possibility of like becoming better, challenging me, knowing that I am able to receive criticism, but also like grow from that and have conversations of not allowing my emotions to take the best toll of me in that process, right? I think that's a sign of maturing. I think that's a sign of improvement and of growth. and also healing. I think overall just healing. Needless to say, all of those things really line up as to why I came to Miami. And I've been here almost 7 years. No, it's been 7 years. May marked 7 years for me. It's crazy to think. Oh my God. May of this year marked 7 years for me that I've been here. And so I officially call this place home. I mean, I've been calling it home for a while, but I think it's really settled in my heart and in my spirit that I have so much peace about being here. I have so much peace about living here. When I was in New York and I started diving in those spaces of like stable relationships, like my friends, Nika and Shai, I think there was also like a longing for something more. And I didn't know what that something more was at the time. I know that I continued my same day-to-day tradition of journaling and going to church and being in community and all those things. And finally it came to a point, I remember it was like in the beginning of 2016, I had this prompting before, I would say like right after my breakup, which is like in 2014, I would say like 2015 is really when I started getting a prompting in my heart of like that I needed to leave New York, but I didn't know where. I didn't think anything of it. I kind of like pushed it down, pushed it aside, and I was like, it's fine. Like I'm just ignoring whatever that feeling was, right? I was like, New York is my home. Like this is where I'm gonna live forever. Like I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. And then 2016, very clearly, I think it was like after a message that I heard at church. I remember it was like the beginning of the year, maybe like around February. I'm pretty sure it was like around February. I started getting this push like in my heart, like you need to get up and move. That's all I kept hearing. It's like, get up and move. And it's like, at the beginning of the year, I was like, I have no idea what this means. I don't know, whatever. At the time, I was living with my aunt. And don't get me wrong, I loved every second of it. It was amazing. And surely after, I would say maybe like a month or 2 months after that, like, I heard it very clearly. Like, you need to get up and move to Miami. I remember I'm like, it's like, there's no way I'm moving to Miami. I was like, there's nothing there. There's no fashion there. It was like, there's no, like, it's literally swimwear and bikinis and, you know, hot weather. I was like, that is not me. I love my cold weathers. I love my winter. I love my spring. I love my fall. I'm not going to the hot, you know, I'm just not doing it. I was like, if anything, I would move to California. I was like, then I remember I was like starting to look for places in LA, and I was like, oh, California would be the dream. And then I was like, the amount of rent, I was like, realistically, it didn't seem fit. Like, I was like, that was definitely a no. And I just felt like even when I was looking through the process, it was like God was showing me, it's like, this is not where you're going. And so, long and behold, I would say that April, I like had discernment and my spirit was like, okay, you're moving to Miami. I would say I started looking for apartments and places in Florida and like trying to figure out areas. And like I remember I was like discreetly texting Shy and like, where do you live around again? Like, because she was the only friend that I had that lived here. But I remember at the time, like I thought to myself, like, first of all, Shy is the only person I know in Miami for a fact. I know that I really will never see her because she's constantly studying for her boards or like, you know, constantly working at the hospital and ER and like she's a doctor, you know, like in the process of becoming a certified doctor. And so it's like there's no way like we're gonna be able to see each other often. So I was like, I'm literally going into this like not knowing anyone. And she was the one that told me about Vu. And funny enough, I remember like coming towards the end of 2016, I made the decision, okay, come next year, I'm moving to Miami. And so I planned it that for my birthday, it's like March 2017, I actually had told Shai, I was like, hey, like I'm gonna book a flight, I'm gonna come to Miami for the weekend for my birthday. She's like, great, awesome. Having no clue of anything. She was like, okay, you're just gonna come and we're gonna have like some fun time. So come to Miami, and I remember it's my birthday. It was like, I think it was a Thursday. It was a Thursday. My birthday that year fell on a Thursday, and I think I had turned 25, 26, maybe 27, 26, 27, something like that. I turned, and she was like, hey, like, I actually have this church thing. Like, do you want to go? And I was like, immediately, my heart was like bursting into flames. I'm like, absolutely, like anything church, sure, I'll go. Even on my birthday, let's do it. And I remember we drive up at the time, I have no idea where we're going, but now it's no longer there, but it used to be Salsa Fiesta. It was on Biscayne Boulevard. And we drive into this parking lot, and she goes ahead of me, and she's like speeding, and I'm like, I forgot who I was texting. I was like on my phone, and then like I'm following her. I'm like, where the heck did she go? Like, where did she go? And so turned the corner, and there's like 40 people at this crew, and all of them shout happy birthday. Literally everyone and I just remember like shaking and hysterically laughing because I thought it was the most funniest thing. Like when I get nervous that way, I just can't help but just laugh uncontrollably. And so I'm like laughing so hard, and I remember it was Michelle and Adrian Molina, and they welcomed me with open arms, and it was like the sweetest gesture. Like that for me was like the seal of God's approval of like, this is where you're headed. This is why you're moving to Miami. And now I was like, man, again, it comes to that family dynamic, right? Where it's like, once again, grew up in a broken home. Didn't know what love, the true meaning of love was. Didn't understand it. Didn't know what having a family looked like. And to be received, not knowing what I was coming into, not having a community, not having family, and be received in such a way with such love and such honor, that was like, man, this is what I'm moving to. And I will never forget it. At that crew on my birthday, I even announced to them, I was like, hey, because I had initially told Shai like a day before that I was planning on moving to Miami. And I told him, I was like, I'm actually going to be moving here in May. And I'll probably be coming to your crew. And sure enough, it did happen. Like within a month or 2 months later, whatever that time flew by, and I was on a plane. Will never forget the date. I was on a plane on May 4th, 2017. It was a Saturday, landed in Miami. That Sunday, had no furniture, by the way, in my apartment. I was sleeping on Shai's couch until my furniture came because it was on its way. And I went to VU. And I remember the first time I was at VU, I was like, it kind of hit home for me because it's like, man. Like I remember I walked in and I was like, oh, I have that Hillsong vibe. And I was like, I don't know. I was like very uncertain at first, but I was like, the crew aspect was great. But when I actually walked into church, I was like, I don't know if I like this feeling. And then I remember I told Shai about it. She was like, no. She's like, you need to come back next week. Because I think Pastor Rich was actually out of town. He's away that we had a guest pastor that Sunday. And believe it or not, like when I came back that next Sunday, I remember seeing Pastor Rich like going up and down the aisles at JDD, literally like saying good morning to people, shaking their hands, like, and for me that was a culture shock I'm gonna be very honest, it was such a culture shock because it's like the only other church that ever happened to me was when I went to Trinity Grace Church in Chelsea, where we had that relationship where our pastor actually took the time to like say good morning to people. And I now, obviously, as a matured Christian, as I continue to mature in age, like what we're doing here in Miami is such a blessing to the kingdom of heaven. And now I know that's like the reality is like all pastors don't have the opportunity to do that. You know, like they have to live their lives too, and they have their circle of people and like all those things. And I think there's a longing where it's like some people just like desire that pastoral leader to closer proximity because then they feel like, man, like I have that connection to my pastor, whoever the pastor is, right? But for me at the time, coming from all these layers of hurt and baggage of years of like not processing through it, like coming into this space, I remember just like sitting back and like, whoa. I'm like, he's actually saying hi to people. I'm like, like immediately I remember like thinking about back in my mind, like, man, like Pastor Rich actually cares about this community. It's like it's only pastors that take the time to connect with people cares about its community. And for me, again, as a new Christian, leaving Hillsong, I didn't get to experience that at Hillsong. I got to experience that through my Connect group, and that was wonderful, that was beautiful, that was great. But not everyone was as inviting, I would say. And so to see that transformation from like coming from that dynamic to then being at a smaller church to then coming to VU, that changed everything for me. That immediately was like the cherry on top. It was like, man, there's something so special here. And I even remember like looking back at my old journals, and it's crazy. It's so crazy how God works and the funny things that God does throughout the process of like you getting closer to Him or getting closer to His kingdom, right? And I remember specifically praying about community and specifically praying about family and feeling at home. Like this was back like in my journals from like 2015, before all of this even like process started happening. And to now look back and see like, wow, God, you truly were in all those details. And now I'm 7 years into this thing. I wouldn't go back and change any of it. I really wouldn't go back and change any of it. I am so grateful. I know that this community has matured me in ways that I think if I would have stayed and remained where I was and stayed complacent, I would have never grown to the ability where I've grown now. And I don't know where I would be, to be honest. And I didn't even care to find out. I'm like, I'm in a space where I'm like, I don't care to find out those details. I really don't care to find out. But I am truly forever grateful that God has made this life happen the way that it did. I'm grateful for this community. I'm grateful for the friends that truly have challenged me, have loved me for me, have accepted me for me and all my craziness sometimes, but also have made me better. And I'm also grateful that I would say maybe not the first time, I would say this will be the second time, because the first time was really Nika and Shai that made me feel safe enough to be myself and also to feel like a part of a family. But two, like the second place to do that for me was Miami. In the midst of like even crazy seasons of it all throughout the 7 years, I would say like hasn't been easy by any means being here. There's been a lot of like heartache and a lot of things that have happened throughout these 7 years that I don't take lightly, but I also know that it's just a part of my process to continue to grow. And so for me, I like look back at that and I'm like, I think for the second time in my life, Vu has really painted, and I wouldn't even just say like Vu, but I would say like our pastors, this community has really painted a picture of what true family looks like, how the love of God looks like. Yeah.